Barb, I have to ask you about what the DOJ can do with some of this. First and foremost, this notion, the fear that was felt by Cassidy Hutchinson, it made me think immediately of a crime syndicate, which is a phrase that has been used in conjunction with the Trump White House. I want to read an excerpt from the transcript. This would be a full screen for my control room. It wasn't just that I had Stefan Passantino sitting next to me, says Hutchinson. It was almost like I felt like I had Trump looking over my shoulder, because I knew in some fashion it would get back to him if I said anything that he would find disloyal. And the prospect of that genuinely scared me. You know, I'd seen this world ruin people's lives or try to ruin people's career. I'd seen how vicious they can be. What is there to be done with that if you're the DOJ and working on your own investigation into January 6th right now?
Well, there's certainly the potential there for witness tampering. You know, intimidating a witness to lie is a crime. It's an obstruction of justice statute. And so I don't know that you can read the face of this and say, oh, there it is, there's the crime. But I think that there is certainly sufficient questions to be asked. I would want to ask Cassidy Hutchinson, what caused you to feel this way? What were the things that were said to you? Who said them? What did they say? How many times did they say them? But some of the things that her lawyer, Stefan Passantino, is reported to have said, according to Cassidy Hutchinson herself, is don't commit perjury. Just say you don't recall, because they don't know what you can and can't recall, even though she could recall things. I mean, that really is coaching a witness to lie. So it's kind of two different things. Telling her to lie would be one crime, and then intimidating her or promising her things, inducements, a job, other things, could also be witness intimidation. So I think it requires additional information. Is any of this documented in her deposition testimony? It appears that there were text messages coming from some of these lawyers with some of these assurances. That would be some dynamite evidence that could back up her witness testimony. So I think that there's absolutely grounds there to investigate for witness intimidation. And I'll tell you what else. If they did it to Cassidy Hutchinson, I am wondering who else they did it to and who else didn't have the courage to say no.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time you read in those transcripts, I don't recall. You got to think, is that legal coaching? Is that from Trump world? Is that the pressure campaign? Barb, to your end, the carrot and the stick approach that seems to be employed by some of the Trump-affiliated counsel. We know what the stick is. Cassidy Hutchinson is worried about her career being ruined. But the carrot, the incentives, the offers of financial support, and the jobs. I want to read another excerpt from the transcript. This would be the sixth, quote, full screen 6 for the control room. I remember Justin Clark saying something to the effect of, and Justin Clark is affiliated with Trumpland, to the effect of, it feels like we're not taking care of you, Cass, but I promise you we are. Like, we're on your team. We're going to get you a really great job. You don't have to worry financially about the second subpoena and this interview. Like, everything is going to be covered. Don't worry. Just keep up the good work. No one is mad at you. Just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, Barbara McQuade, that seems on its face like tampering with a witness.
Yeah, so the key there is to show that the person had a corrupt intent. Certainly lawyers coach legitimately, ethically, clients all the time. Clients are nervous when they're testifying. And they might be told, you're doing great. Just answer the questions. Tell the truth. You're doing fine. That's all okay. But if there is a corrupt intent, that is, I either said wonderful things to you to entice your good behavior and loyalty, or I threatened you or tried to intimidate you that something bad would happen if you didn't go along with the plan, in an effort to influence her to tell something other than the truth, that's when it's a crime. And so, just on their face, it raises an eyebrow. You'd want to ask more questions, but when you have to prove a crime beyond a reasonable doubt, typically prosecutors are going to want more than just one witness here, like Cassidy Hutchinson. They're going to want some sort of corroboration. So that's why seeing it in documentation can be so valuable.
Kyle, talk to me about how you're seeing the release of this particular set of transcripts from Cassidy Hutchinson. Not her first deposition in front of the committee, right? The first 2.5 are basically under duress, if you will, if you believe her testimony, that she was being coached by Trump counsel not to be fully truthful with the committee. the committee has chosen to release this set of transcripts first. And we know that they released 34 transcripts yesterday, mostly of people pleading the fifth. This is the really the first one that has some honest to goodness answers. And boy, are they bombshells. How are you interpreting this kind of rollout on behalf of the committee, given the fact that we also don't yet have their 900-page full report?
Well, just one small point to make is that right at the outset of this transcript, they make a point to say, by the way, we know you've already shared this information with the Justice Department. So they're flicking ahead to what they know is the next chapter in all this, which will be the DOJ investigation that is well underway and will surpass what the committee can do ultimately. But I think, look, they recognize how important Cassidy Hutchinson was to their overall investigation, and that these were some of the outstanding questions where, look, she faced challenges to her veracity after her public testimony, mostly from anonymous people who wanted to challenge her in ways that haven't really been haven't held up under scrutiny or been fully substantiated. And she's taken a lot of that exactly what she talked about was that those attacks from Trump world that she was so worried about privately, we saw them in full view after her public testimony. And so I think they wanted to show that she had a lot more to say. She had a fuller story about how she ended up where she did, why she ended up in that chair at the end of June and delivering that explosive testimony that was a lot more complicated than we may have realized at that time, even from what we knew when she appeared on June 28th.